On April 30th, 1945, before taking his own life, Adolf Hitler and his wife Eva Braun burned all their documents, photographs, everything. Hitler wanted nothing to remain after him. At that time, no one knew what had happened in the bunker before Hitler's death. But now, 70 years later, due to a French officer, Commander Raymond Rose, who is no longer alive and a private collector, some new political and personal documents of Hitler have emerged. These unique documents, revealed for the first time, provide a clearer understanding of some key moments from Hitler's final days. What was the atmosphere like in the bunker? Why did Hitler marry Eva Braun just 40 hours before his death? Which close associate betrayed him in the last 10 days of his life? When was the decision made to take his own life? And most importantly, what was the key detail that allowed the Allied forces to confirm that the dead body indeed belonged to Hitler? Welcome once again to Mystery Hub Videos. After Hitler's death, everyone was trying to understand and explore the bunker. On November 25, 1945, Commandant Raymond Rose, a French officer, entered the bunker. To access the bunker, there were 26 steps leading to a dark chamber. Inside, he found a dimly lit and filthy room filled with scattered papers, overturned furniture, and candle wax. Rose discovered some documents that shed new light on Hitler's final days. These documents reveal that Hitler remained firm in his decision until the very end and was seeking a victory even in his death. Just 10 days before Hitler's death, Nazi Germany's dream of world domination had turned into nothing more than an illusion. Hitler's empire, once one of the most powerful in the world and a major threat to Western powers, was now counting its last moments. Berlin, which was both Hitler's dream and the center of his power, had turned into rubble. Everywhere there was destruction, fear, and death. Allied bombs were raining down, and the Red Army was just 100 kilometers away. Hitler, who was now about to fall victim to his own fate, was hiding in the darkness of a bunker, an underground structure located near the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. This was no ordinary bunker. It had been designed by Albert Speer, Hitler's personal architect, to be extremely strong and bomb-proof. It was initially built in 1936, but as Allied bombings became more intense in 1943 and 1944, it was reinforced even further. In German, this bunker was called the Führerbunker. Führer means leader, so this was the leader's bunker. This was the very place where Adolf Hitler, who dreamed of ruling the entire world, was hiding and where he spent his final days. The atmosphere in the bunker was extremely depressing: silence, thick concrete walls, cold and damp air, and complete darkness. The bunker was like a maze with small corridors and rooms that felt suffocating. Inside this bunker, Hitler had a private space with 3 rooms. One was a meeting room where he held military operation meetings twice a day. Another was a small room for his mistress, Eva Braun. The third was a shared bathroom for both of them. The bunker's environment was filled with fear and depression. Since it was underground, air circulation depended on a mechanical ventilation system that constantly made noise. This noise was not only physically disturbing, but also a form of mental torture for those living inside. In his last 10 days, Hitler was not only physically exhausted, but also mentally drained. He had developed Parkinson's disease, which caused his hands to tremble. To hide this, he often kept his left hand in his pocket or positioned it in a way that others wouldn't notice. During these final days, his hands would shake continuously, and he had difficulty walking. According to doctors, his face had become so pale and worn out that he looked 10 to 15 years older than his actual age. Any officers who met him during this period were shocked to see his deteriorating health. Hitler's personal doctor, Theodor Morell, who was present in the bunker, would inject him with glucose and vitamins daily. However, none of this was enough to improve his condition. Losing control over his own hands was the biggest sign of his declining morale. Life in the bunker had become monotonous. Every morning, there was a military meeting where his generals briefed him on the situation in Berlin. The news of gradually losing control over the city was making Hitler increasingly frustrated. Distrust was a core part of Hitler's personality. He never trusted anyone easily. Even in his final days, he remained paranoid that one of his own generals might betray him. And in reality, something similar did happen later. As most people inside the bunker were planning their escape, Eva Braun chose to stay with Hitler. She had been his mistress for 13 years. Although they were not married, she lived with him in the bunker. Experts believe that staying in the bunker was Eva Braun's own decision, and perhaps this was also Hitler's greatest weakness. Eva was a romantic and emotional woman who wanted to be with Hitler until the end. Some of her letters, written to her friends, have been found. These letters give us some insight into the private life of Hitler and Eva. For Eva, her life's purpose was to be with Hitler. In one of her letters, she wrote, "This place is terrifying, but I am happy here because Hitler is with me." Inside the bunker, Eva Braun had a very limited daily routine. She often spent time in her room, arranging her photographs, or sometimes having coffee with Hitler. But one thing that stands out is that Eva Braun felt extremely lonely. Her letters do not just reflect her love and loyalty, but also show her inner fear and loneliness. The situation outside the bunker during the last 10 days, Berlin had turned into a battlefield. Allied bombers were dropping bombs on the city day and night. The Red Army, which was the military of the Soviet Union, was just a few kilometers away from the bunker, fighting Hitler's army on Berlin's border. Even though Hitler's army had 9 tanks and nearly 500,000 German soldiers to defend Berlin, Nazi Germany's forces were melting away. The man who once dreamed of ruling for 1,000 years was now failing miserably. Berlin's people were hiding in bunkers and under rooftops, trying to save their lives, while the radio was only broadcasting Nazi propaganda and music. As time passed, Red Army soldiers overpowered the German forces on Berlin's outskirts. A German soldier later said that when he returned to Berlin, he couldn't recognize the city because there were only piles of rubble everywhere. This was the moment when even the German army realized that Hitler's leadership was coming to an end. The betrayal of Hermann Göring a few days before Hitler's death, another dramatic event unfolded. Hermann Göring, who was the head of the German Air Force under the Nazi regime, revealed his ambition to seize power. Hermann Göring was one of Hitler's closest allies, holding multiple key positions. In 1933. Hitler appointed him as the head of the Air Ministry. In 1935, he became the commander-in-chief of the German Air Force. In 1936, he was put in charge of the 4-year plan, which was created to boost Germany's economy. In 1941, Hitler officially named Göring as his successor and deputy, meaning that if Hitler were gone, Göring would take control. Göring believed that Hitler was trapped in Berlin and the leadership should now be in his hands. So he sent Hitler a telegram stating that if Hitler was no longer able to make decisions, he should officially transfer leadership to him. Upon reading the telegram, Hitler, who was already extremely depressed, became furious. In his rage, he removed Göring from all positions, declared him a traitor, and ordered his arrest. Later, Hermann Göring was sentenced to death, but just a few hours before his execution, he took poison and ended his own life. On one hand, the Red Army was advancing deeper into Berlin, and on the other, one of Hitler's closest allies had betrayed him. This entire situation forced Hitler into actions he had never even imagined. It was April 29, 1945. Hitler gathered his closest people and said, "The time has come." At 1 a.m., he officially married Eva Braun, his longtime mistress. This wedding took place inside the bunker with just 2 or 3 officers as witnesses. After the marriage, Hitler called his secretary and dictated his last will, in which he wrote, "Eva and I have chosen death. For us, death is better than the shame of surrender." Unfortunately, this marriage lasted only 1 day. Hitler and Eva's death on April 30th, 1945. At 3 p.m., Hitler poisoned his dog, Blondie, and then went into his room with Eva. Exactly 24 hours after their wedding, both of them ended their lives inside the bunker. Hitler shot himself with a pistol, and Eva took a cyanide capsule and embraced death. The bunker staff had already received instructions from Hitler, so they carried both bodies outside, poured fuel on them, and set them on fire. Hitler did not want to leave any trace behind. Before dying, both he and Eva burned documents and photographs, and finally, they ordered their own bodies to be burned. This proves that even in his final moments, Hitler did not want his enemies to capture his body. He did not want Soviet soldiers to use his corpse as a trophy for the world to see. This is exactly why he ordered his body to be burned. When the Red Army entered the bunker, they found only burnt remains. But how did they confirm these remains belonged to Hitler? After extensive investigation, Soviet soldiers took dental samples from the remains. Hitler hated going to the dentist, so he had a unique gold dental bridge made to cover his broken teeth. This dental bridge was the key to identifying Hitler's body. Hope you all will fully support and like this video from Mystery Hub.